Do you have a friend that would die for you? Would you die for a friend? Maybe we would donate blood, maybe even an organ. But would we die for them? How about a stranger, especially if that stranger was the most vile of human beings? Hello, this is John Michael Grogan with Advancing Your World. C. Truman Davis wrote in his book, The Crucifixion of Jesus, about the physiological changes in the human body when crucified. The Romans used capital punishment for multiple offenses. Crucifixion was used to ensure social conformity and was fairly broadly practiced. Caligula, third Roman emperor, was supposed to have said, Oderint domituent. Let them hate, so long as they fear. After the release of Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, I did some research regarding Christ's crucifixion. Incidentally, after viewing the movie, some of which I could not look at, I became aware of something I had never seen in a theater. Many people remained in their seats after the film, as if they were immobilized. The impact of the film was so great. Then as we filed out of the theater, there was no conversation, no discussion, just dead silence. At the crucifixion site outside of Jerusalem, where common criminals were executed, Christ was roughly placed on the crossbar he had carried to this place, Golgotha, or place of the skull. A legionnaire feels for a depression in his wrist, places a square wrought iron nail at that point, and hammers it through the wrist. He moves quickly to the other side and repeats this grisly action. An interesting aside, it was Mel Gibson's hand in the movie that held the nail. He wanted to be a part of what we all are guilty of if we reject Christ or indulge our physical lust. The crossbar now lifted in place at the top of the post. The titulus crucis, or label, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, is mockingly nailed in place. Now the left foot is pressed backward against the right foot, and with both feet extended, toes down, a nail is driven through the arch of each into the footrest. Christ pushes himself up to avoid the stretching torment, placing his full weight on the nail through his feet. This sends searing agony through his lower body as the nail tears through the nerves between the metatarsal bones in his feet. As his arms fall from fatigue, great waves of cramps sweep over the muscles, knotting them in deep, relentless, throbbing pain. With these cramps comes the inability to push himself upward. Hanging by his arms, the pectoral muscles in his chest are unable to act. Air can be drawn into the lungs, but cannot be exhaled. Jesus fights to raise himself in order to get even one short breath. Finally, carbon dioxide builds up in the lungs and in the bloodstream, and the cramps partially subside. Spasmodically, he is able to push himself upward to exhale and bring in life-giving oxygen. Time passes slowly as hours pass in pain. Hours of this limitless pain, cycles of twisting, joint-rending cramps, intermittent partial asphyxiation, searing pain as tissue is torn from his lacerated back from the scourging he took at the Praetorium. This happens over and over as he moves up and down against the rough timber, trying to find relief. Then another agony begins, a deep, crushing pain deep in the chest as the pericardium slowly fills with serum and begins to compress the heart. The compressed heart is struggling to pump heavy, thick, sluggish blood into the tissues. The tortured lungs are making a frantic effort to gasp in small gulps of air. The markedly dehydrated tissues send their flood of stimuli to the brain. Jesus gasps, "I thirst." He can feel the chill of death creeping through his tissues. With one last surge of strength, he once again presses his torn feet against the nail, straightening his legs, taking a deep breath, and utters his last cry, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." To ensure that he is dead, a legionnaire drives his lance through the fifth inner space between the ribs, upward through the pericardium, and into the heart. Immediately, blood and water spurt out. There is conclusive evidence that Christ died, not the usual crucifixion death by suffocation, but by him giving up his spirit, saying, "It is finished." Because he died once for all, not once and for all, but once for all, we are faced with a question. Will we acknowledge with our tongue that we as sinners need salvation through Christ, or will we not? Someone said, "We are not sinners because we sin. We sin because we are sinners." This takes us back to the first question asked at the beginning of this podcast. Do you have a friend that would die for you? If we acknowledge Jesus Christ as our Savior and Lord, he becomes our friend. To be a friend of Christ is to be a brother of Christ. This makes us righteous in the sight of God. In the Bible it says, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has comprehended what God has in store for those who love him." Once we cross the threshold of death, it is too late to alter our decision. This is John Michael Grogan saying, be strong, be bold, be courageous. And remember, people would rather hear the truth than flattery.
Sign up for exclusive access to Dr. Grogan's newsletter, and as an added bonus, you'll receive access to the growth chart that Dr. Grogan talks about in the podcast Majoring in the Majors. Visit johnmgrogan.com and sign up today. That's johnmgrogan.com. And don't forget, subscribe to Advancing Your World on your favorite podcast app.